A teenager and a senior citizen, worlds apart in age and ability, were thrown together by a canceled flight. Their unlikely bond on that plane is a story you won't believe. Tim Cook, a man etched with the gentle weariness of his 70-odd years, stood amidst the bustling chaos of Boston Logan International Airport. His clothes, simple and slightly worn, spoke of a life lived practically, not lavishly. He was a study in contrasts, a strong frame softened by age, a kind face bearing the lines of time, and eyes that, while unseeing, held a certain peacefulness. He relied heavily on his remaining senses. The cacophony of the airport was a muted, confusing roar to him, the smells a jumble of coffee, perfume, and anxiety. He clutched a well-worn travel bag, its contents holding the simple necessities for his return journey home. He was a man out of his element, a quiet island in a turbulent sea. His destination, Portland, Oregon. His reason for being here, in this disorienting place, a visit to his ailing sister, Margaret. Their bond, forged in childhood, was a lifeline, a connection to a world that was increasingly difficult for him to navigate. Across the crowded waiting area, 15-year-old Clara sat with her mother, Jane. Clara, a bright, energetic teenager, possessed an inquisitive gaze that took in everything around her. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes, a lively hazel, sparkled with intelligence. She'd been captivated by American Sign Language, ASL, for the past year, driven by a genuine fascination with the language and a desire to connect with the deaf community. Perhaps it was sparked by a chance encounter, or maybe it was simply her innate empathy. Whatever the reason, she devoured books and online tutorials, practicing diligently. Jane, her mother, watched her with a quiet smile. A woman of calm demeanor and keen observation, Jane possessed a gentle strength. She was perhaps a teacher or a social worker, someone accustomed to understanding and helping others. She encouraged Clara's passions, recognizing the inherent goodness in her daughter's desire to bridge communication gaps. Their trip to Boston had been planned as a family visit, a chance to reconnect with relatives. Now, their original flight was canceled, a frustrating twist that left them stranded alongside countless other travelers. The air thrummed with collective disappointment and the low hum of forced patience. Yet, within this shared frustration, a unique opportunity was about to unfold. Lynette Scribner, also awaiting the rebooked flight, discreetly watched the older man. She could not overhear the conversation, but noticed the apprehension in the older man's face. He was clearly having difficulty. He had been fumbling with his ticket and documents. She noticed his white cane and quickly assessed that he was either blind or significantly visually impaired. Finally, boarding the flight to Portland, Tim felt a wave of relief wash over him, quickly followed by a surge of anxiety. The confines of the aircraft, with its unfamiliar sounds and smells, were disorienting. The muted roar of the engines, the muffled announcements, the close proximity of strangers, it was all overwhelming. He found his assigned middle seat, his hands tracing the contours of the armrests, trying to anchor himself in the unfamiliar space. The air, thick with the scent of recycled air and anticipation, felt heavy in his lungs. He felt a tap on his shoulder, the flight attendant. She handed him a small, braille card with the safety instructions. The man seated next to him, sensing Tim's discomfort, offered to switch seats. It was a small gesture, a silent act of kindness that eased Tim's immediate anxiety, allowing him a bit more space and access to the aisle. Tim mouthed a silent thank you, his gratitude unspoken but deeply felt. The flight attendant, a woman named Sarah with a warm smile and perceptive eyes, had noticed Tim's struggles from the moment he boarded. She'd had a brief, awkward exchange with him, using a pen and notepad to communicate, realizing the full extent of his challenges. He was both deaf and blind. As the plane leveled off, Sarah made an announcement, her voice calm and reassuring. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we have a passenger on board who is both deaf and blind, and he's traveling alone. If anyone on this flight knows American Sign Language and would be willing to assist him, please press your call button. The request hung in the air, a quiet plea for human connection in the midst of a routine flight. She internally hoped someone could step forward, feeling a pang of sympathy for Tim. Clara heard the announcement, her heart skipping a beat. A mixture of emotions flooded her: nervousness, excitement, and a powerful urge to help. She hesitated for a moment, her teenage self-consciousness battling with her desire to do the right thing. She glanced at her mother, seeking reassurance. Jane met her gaze, her expression calm and encouraging. "Go ahead, honey," she said softly. "You can do this." Her mother's quiet confidence gave Clara the final push she needed. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the call button, her hand trembling slightly. She felt a rush of adrenaline, a mixture of fear and determination. She'd practiced ASL for hours, but this was different. This was real. Sarah, the flight attendant, approached Clara, her eyes filled with gratitude. She led Clara to Tim's seat, explaining the situation quietly. Clara stood before Tim, her heart pounding in her chest. She gently touched his hand, her fingers trembling slightly. He turned towards her, his unseeing eyes searching. She took his hand in hers, her touch firm and reassuring. Then, slowly and deliberately, she began to sign into his palm. "HELLO, MYNAMEISCLARA." She repeated it, her fingers moving with practiced grace. It was a leap of faith, a bridge built across a chasm of silence and darkness. She hoped, with a nervous flutter in her stomach, that he would understand. A slow smile spread across Tim's face, a radiant expression that transformed his features. He'd felt the touch, the hesitant movement of fingers against his palm. He'd understood. It was a moment of profound relief, a connection forged in the unlikeliest of places. His grip tightened on Clara's hand, a silent expression of gratitude. He'd been prepared for a long, isolating flight, resigned to his solitude. Now, suddenly, a door had opened, a bridge had been built. He signed back, slowly but surely, THENKYOUTIM. His joy was palpable, a beacon of warmth in the cool, impersonal cabin. The questions tumbled out of Tim, a torrent of curiosity unleashed. He asked Clara her age, where she was from, why she had learned ASL. He was eager to connect, to share his own story. Clara, patiently and diligently, spelled each answer into his hand, her fingers dancing across his palm. She told him about her school, her friends, her passion for languages. She described the scenery outside the window, painting a picture with words for him to see. She learned about his life in Portland, his simple routines, his love for his sister. The conversation flowed, a testament to the power of human connection to overcome barriers. There were moments of frustration, of course. Sometimes Clara didn't understand a sign, or Tim struggled to grasp a word. But they persevered, using repetition, rephrasing, and a shared determination to communicate. It was a slow, deliberate dance of understanding, a beautiful unfolding of connection. As the flight progressed, their conversation moved beyond the superficial. Tim, emboldened by Clara's genuine interest, began to share his vulnerabilities. He spoke of the loneliness that often accompanied his condition, the feeling of being isolated in a world designed for sighted and hearing people. He talked about the challenges of navigating everyday life, the frustrations of relying on others, the constant struggle to maintain his independence. He described the quiet emptiness of his house, the absence of his sister's voice, the yearning for human connection. Clara listened intently, her heart aching with empathy. She didn't offer empty platitudes or dismiss his feelings. Instead, she shared her own experiences, drawing parallels where she could. She spoke of times when she felt different, misunderstood, or alone. She talked about her admiration for the deaf community, their resilience, and their vibrant culture. She explained how learning ASL had opened her eyes to a different way of experiencing the world, a world where communication transcended spoken words. She acknowledged his struggles, validating his feelings without pity. As Tim spoke of his deepest fears, a single tear traced a path down his weathered cheek. It was a silent testament to the weight of his isolation, the depth of his longing for connection. He hadn't realized how much he'd bottled up, how much he needed to be heard, to be understood. Clara, sensing his emotional shift, gently squeezed his hand. She didn't try to stop his tears. She simply offered her presence, her unwavering support. She signed, slowly and deliberately, "Yuare Enoti Elone." She repeated it, her fingers pressing the message into his palm with gentle emphasis. The simple words, conveyed with such sincerity, resonated deeply within Tim. It was a moment of profound connection, a recognition of shared humanity. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in a long time. Clara, without hesitation, leaned in and gave Tim a gentle hug. It was a spontaneous gesture of comfort, a wordless expression of empathy. Tim returned the hug, his arms holding her close. In that moment, the sterile confines of the airplane cabin faded away, replaced by a powerful bond between two strangers. Lynette Scribner, seated a few rows back, had been discreetly observing Clara and Tim throughout the flight. She was deeply moved by the scene unfolding before her, by the young girl's kindness and the elderly man's evident relief. She watched as Clara patiently signed into Tim's hand, her face animated with empathy and concentration. She saw the smile on Tim's face, the tears in his eyes, the gentle hug they shared. It was a powerful reminder of the inherent goodness that existed in the world, a beacon of hope amidst the everyday anxieties of travel. Lynette felt a profound sense of gratitude for witnessing such a beautiful act of human connection. She knew she had to share this story, to amplify this small act of kindness that had made such a profound difference. Sarah, the flight attendant, also noticed the interaction, her heart swelling with pride and admiration for Clara. Other passengers, catching glimpses of the exchange, smiled knowingly, their faces reflecting a shared sense of warmth. Jane, watching her daughter from across the aisle, felt a surge of maternal pride. She knew Clara had a kind heart, but witnessing her compassion in action was deeply moving. As the plane began its descent into Portland, the conversation between Clara and Tim gradually slowed. The reality of their impending separation settled upon them. Tim signed, his fingers moving with a newfound confidence. "Thnkyou, CLARA, BSD, TRIP." He added, with a touch of humor, "EVR." Clara smiled, her eyes sparkling. She signed back, "YUAREWLCOME, TIM. IWILL, NEVR, FORGTYOU." When the plane landed, Tim gathered his belongings, his movements more assured than before. Clara helped him navigate the crowded aisle, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They exchanged a final hug, a silent promise to remember this extraordinary encounter. Tim expressed the wish to exchange emails. They quickly traded information. As Tim walked away, guided by a member of the ground crew, Clara felt a pang of sadness, but it was quickly replaced by a profound sense of fulfillment. She had made a difference, a real connection, in a stranger's life. Lynette, true to her intentions, crafted a heartfelt post on Facebook as soon as she disembarked and had service. She described the scene she had witnessed, praising Clara's kindness and Alaska Airlines sensitivity. The post, accompanied by a discreet photo of Clara and Tim's hands clasped together, quickly went viral. Clara, back home with her mother, checked her phone and saw Lynette's post. She was initially embarrassed by the attention, but soon realized the positive impact it was having. The comments were overwhelmingly positive, filled with praise for her actions and expressions of gratitude for the reminder of human kindness. She shared the post with Tim via email, a digital connection bridging the physical distance between them. Tim, too, was overwhelmed by the response. His email inbox flooded with messages from strangers, offering words of support, sharing their own stories, and expressing admiration for Clara. He felt a renewed sense of connection to the world, a feeling of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. The isolation that had once weighed so heavily upon him began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. "I didn't do anything special, Mom," Clara remarked, still slightly overwhelmed by all the online activity. "You did, sweetie," Jane responded. "You saw someone who needed help, and you offered it. It might seem small to you, but it was huge for him." They discussed how much impact a simple act of kindness can have, not just for the recipient, but for everyone who witnesses it. The encounter with Clara and the subsequent outpouring of support had a profound impact on Tim's life. He became more outgoing, more willing to engage with the world around him. He joined a local support group for people with visual impairments, finding companionship and shared understanding. He started taking walks in his neighborhood, his cane tapping a confident rhythm on the sidewalk. He reconnected with old friends, sharing his story and inspiring them with his newfound resilience. He was no longer the isolated man, trapped in silence and darkness. He was Tim, a man connected, a man seen, a man loved. The world felt and sounded a little bit brighter. Clara and Tim's story serves as a powerful reminder that kindness matters. It's a testament to the transformative power of human connection, the ability to bridge divides, and the profound impact of a simple act of empathy. It's a call to action, to see the people around us, to offer help when needed, and to remember that even the smallest gestures of kindness can create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond our immediate awareness. It's a reminder that we are all connected, and that in reaching out to others, we enrich not only their lives, but our own.